But is there you explain it quite well, I have to say, because you use the problem set as a way to define the scope of what you're working on. But then is there a way to say what that means about the actual world you're operating in when you're dealing with companies or governments or Davos and these fancy 1% summits, or as you alluded to conspiracies earlier, as you know, the Illuminati, QAnon types, they believe that there's 7 of you guys in a room and you're deciding it for everyone else. For the internet, I'll say
I think that's wishful thinking. They hope that there is somebody in charge.
That it's so
the truth
simple,
is much worse. It's chaos.
The truth is chaos. And you've all say for the internet, because people don't always understand my tone. That was an Illuminati joke for the internet. It wasn't an admission.
I understood.
I know you did.
This is a call for vengeance. Welcome to today's show. A subscriber over on the website, uprisingrevival.com, by the name of ADR, posted a hour-long video of Yuval Harari. And you heard the clip there. In the beginning, of course, making mockery of the Illuminati, talking about how it's chaos and how truth is chaos, when we know that Jesus Christ is the way, the life, and the truth, and the only truth in this world, and the only author of chaos is Satan himself. And ADR wrote on the website that about this hour interview, would anybody sit through this thing and break it down? Well, I decided to sit through this nightmare and break down just a few parts of it, because obviously I could show you the entire thing, and you would just go, goodness gracious. But I want to show you some of the stuff he talks about, especially when he's talking about God and how these people like Yuval Harari have been put in these positions, and how people like Barack Obama's, some people out there know him, his fictitious name, and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, these people who have been empowered, how they have come out and picked the brain of this guy who openly talks about the rise of AI and the extinction of humanity, and how he references the Bible and he references God as somebody who endorsed slavery. I'm going to play you these clips for you, just blow your mind. And of course, constantly talking about the Bible being a work of fiction, a work of man, and talking about really trying to say that Christians are liars, but they're not trying to lie, so they're really just fiction tellers, because they don't want to be too offensive and call you a flat-out liar, because he's trying to tell his audience out there that these people are so crazy they actually believe in a man-written book, when it's been proven that the Bible is indeed factual. And a lot of the locations, if you want to go by what they tell us scientists, you can be found on this earth, that they hide from everybody because they want to push their absolute absurdity theory of evolution that people like him talk about, where they talk about chimpanzees, and they act like they're so serious about it. It's amazing that they can keep a straight face when they talk about evolution, and it's even more amazing that people actually buy into this stuff with chimpanzees. It's utterly hilarious when we could just sit here and say, look at chimpanzees, and can we just watch a chimpanzee, from the day the chimpanzee's born and wait for it to evolve into a human? Oh, right, that doesn't really ever occur, right? But they tell you, well, that's because of this. But the whole absurdity of evolution, at this point, if you haven't woken up yet and you actually believe these people who, there's people who are atheists who claim to be, awake, and then they're like, well, the Bible's written by men, and they believe in evolution, which is written by these exact people who do not want you to believe in God, yet we all can see that they believe in the devil. So what do you tell me? They believe in Satan, but they don't believe in God? I mean, give me a break. There's God and the devil, and that's it. And they always tell us this. They always reference this in movies. They reference it every time they talk, even at these political things. And when they're, even guys like Obama who claim not to be religious, they talk about God, they talk about the devil, because that's the truth of the world. It's a battle versus good and evil, a spiritual battle. So I want to play these clips to start. Of course, they make mockery of conspiracy theories in the Illuminati, because why wouldn't they? Because this is something that they've done over and over again, because they know how it works on the audience. The audience hears this and they dismiss, even hearing the term Illuminati now, people just automatically laugh. They're like, Illuminati? And they say it like that because they've been programmed to say it like that. They automatically dismiss. So they love to use the Illuminati. That's why he says, for the internet sleuths out there. Yeah, they talk about secret societies and the Illuminati. And then, of course, nobody's suspicious as to why they are always attacking religion. Now, they talk about how religion is really, a dogma, and how, and the term religion I'm using loosely. What he's really referencing is Jesus Christ, because he tries to bring in, the term religion and Catholics and Muslims, etc. All right, this is a war against God. Okay, our Father in the Bible, our Father in heaven, And what they want to do is make people think that there's this bumbling, there's this mass amount of religions out there, and everybody thinks that there's one specific God. And of course, he references and he's talked about this book called the Talmudic. I don't know if you've heard of it. He says the Talmud and the Talmudic, viewpoints, etc. in this clip. But of course, he pretends to be atheist because his job is to play science. But this guy was raised on those Talmudic books, which I've covered and broken down on the website, and I've shown you Ted Pike's teaching. I mean, the books, go back to ancient Babylon, Mystery Babylon. A lot of those teachings are in all the secret societies, of course, because they're the ones who are responsible for everything that's going on. So I love how they talk about and they bash, I'll just say the Bible, because, again, when they're saying religion, they're saying it loosely. They bash it and they talk about, how these people could decide who can get married and all this stuff. And this is to give a warped perspective of society. But ever since publicly they've started ignoring the Bible and trying to remove the Bible and do all these things with trans, et cetera, et cetera. That's when the world started to become chaos. Because without the Bible, it is a world of chaos. But the Bible is a structure, a way to live. Nobody can look at the Bible and say, oh, yeah, the Ten Commandments, I disagree with this. How anyone could say it is beyond me. But when you look at it, whatever this clip I'm about to show you, this is how these Satanists view the Bible. They look at it and say that God endorsed slavery and God was anti-women and all this type of stuff. And this is how they obviously herd the masses out there that don't really understand Scripture into wanting a world that's more based on science. But the science that they're talking about is really witchcraft, okay? And it sounds like a crazy, kooky thing when you hear someone say science is witchcraft. But really, if you understand the origins of witchcraft and alchemy, all these things tie right into one another. They're using the word science because if they said outright witchcraft, then you probably would turn to God because you realize all this stuff is real. They use the word science to make you think, oh, well, it's science. It has to do with people who are smart and intelligent and know what's going on. When they don't, they're wicked. They're making this stuff as they go. We see how they change the science every single day to benefit their satanic agenda. And then they never address any of this stuff like the communists that they are. No, with science, trust the science. They tell us trust the science. And then when it comes to what a man and a woman is, we're not supposed to trust the most basic science, right? So it's whatever appeals to them, whatever is part of their agenda, I should say, they label as science so that you can't question it. So here's some clips I put together of Yuval. Let's start with him pretty much saying that God endorsed slavery. And, well, just listen to this buffoonery.
So this is not your fault that we have asked you to sit down with us this way, but this next part is also about not only your books, but really this interesting perch that you're on now. And I want to get into how you got there and how much of it was deliberate. A lot of people watching this will have heard of you, or they'll have heard that Obama and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg all are tapping your work and your brain. So let's look at that. You know that people who believe in souls, spiritually or religiously, tend to believe that it's people, today's Homo sapiens, that have souls, and not gold. Yes, but not goldfish. Not ants or insects. Do you think by that view that the Neanderthals or the Homo erectus would also have souls? Would they be spiritually human in the way we understand that? Is that even the right question?
I'm Jewish, and Jews tend to evade these questions, but you should ask the Pope. Because the Catholics are much more straightforward about these things. They have an answer to everything. Yeah. So, chimpanzees, for instance, according to Catholic dogma, chimpanzees don't have souls. When they die, they don't go to chimpanzee heaven or chimpanzee hell. They just disappear. Now, where are Neanderthals in this scheme? And if you think about this kid, whose mother is a sapiens, but whose father is a Neanderthal. So only his mother has a soul, but his father doesn't have a soul. And what does it mean about the kid? Does the kid have half a soul? And if you say, okay, Neanderthals had souls, then you go back a couple of million years and you have the same problem with the last common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees. Again, you have a family, a mother. One child is the ancestor of chimpanzees. The other child is our ancestor. So one child has a soul and the other child doesn't have a soul. And what about the mother? Difficult questions.
Yeah, so you joke about avoiding some theological questions, or a Talmudic answer is generally varied. It has more than one stem or more than one answer. But to press you on it, because so much of your work, and we'll get to this, discusses culture and religion as a type of fiction, as a person-made fiction. are you basically of the view, and the people reading your books, if they accept it, are of the view that we know enough about science now to empirically doubt all the modern versions of God? Whether or not you can say a God exists is a different question. But the modern cultural versions, that it came down on this tablet or it appeared in this century, you think science basically contradicts that?
Not just me. Even religious people would openly tell you that all the gods in the world are fictional stories invented by humans, except one, not my God. My God is true, but Zeus and Shiva and whatever other gods other people have, they are fictions invented by humans. And I think that, again, the scientific consensus is just the same view with an addition of one additional God. My God is also like Zeus and like Jupiter and like Thor and like all these others. It is also a fictional story created by humans. Now, again, you can have a philosophical argument about what God means. But the God we find in many of the, not just religious scriptures, but in many of the political ideologies today in the world, a God that has very strong opinions about what women should wear and who should have sex with whom and what you should vote for in the elections, this God is very clearly a human invention. Now, it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, and it certainly doesn't mean it's unimportant. The fictional stories humans invent are some of the most powerful forces in history, and very often they can also be positive forces. There is nothing inherently wrong in fiction.
Well, let me press you on that, Yuval, because you're putting it so clinically and thus diplomatically. But a religious adherent hearing you would say you're eliding the conclusion of science that you're offering, which actually says it is a fraud, that it is a lie, and that they are lying to people if the underlying... Go ahead.
It's not a lie. There is a huge difference between a lie and a fiction. A lie is when you know something is not true and you deliberately misinform. You deliberately deceive people. I think that in most cases, priests and rabbis and so forth, they were not lying. They honestly believe in the stories that they told and sometimes invented and confabulated. When we come to evaluate a story, the question is not whether it's fictional. Many good stories are fictional, from the level of Harry Potter to the level of money. Can help people in different ways. The question is if a story causes war and genocide and huge misery, then the best thing is to change the story. And for that, we first need to understand that humans like us created the stories, so we can also change them.
Well, let me ask you about that, because you use the word fictional, which can hit different ways to different people. Another word on the positive stories would be aspirational. That Martin Luther King in America knew the documents he referred to did not ever mean or secure absolute equality of different people of different racial backgrounds. He knew that, but he demanded an aspiration that someday they might yet mean that.
So the question is often, do people acknowledge that, say, the basic rules of their society were created out of the human imagination, or are there some kind of objective thing that came from outside, let's say from God? You look, for instance, at the history of slavery. So, the 10 Commandments, in the 10th commandment, there is an endorsement of slavery. The 10th commandment says that you should not covet your neighbor's wife or ox or field or slaves, implying that there is nothing wrong with holding slaves. It's only wrong if you covet your neighbor's slaves. Then God is angry with you. Now, because the 10 Commandments don't acknowledge that they were created by humans, they don't have any mechanism to amend them. And therefore, we still have the 10th Commandment, and nobody has the power to change to strike out slavery from the Ten Commandments. Now, the US Constitution, in contrast, as everybody points out, it was written partly by slaveholders and also endorses slavery. But the genius of the American founders, the genius of the American Constitution, is that it acknowledges that it's the result of human creation. It starts with "we the people," not with "I am your God," and therefore it includes a mechanism to amend itself.
All right, so
this is the ideal.
I have a rebuttal and a question.
Yes.
The rebuttal is everything you said is backed by history, although one could quibble with the way the founders still trafficked in the divine.
So this wouldn't be the first time that he's obviously come out and mocked the Bible, mocked God. This guy is an absolute abomination. Then he goes on to talk about AI. I'm going to use two separate clips here because I want you to hear him talking about AI and how AI is going to be non-controlled by humans. Now, pretty much telling you that deity entities are going to be involved inside of technology, outside of the hands of human beings be able to control it. And we need to allow that to happen. Instead of saying, hey, there's no benefits to having some type of rogue technology running amok. Oh, no, there's benefits. They keep telling us there's benefits, but nobody sees the benefits, right? We still see disease. Of course, these are all diseases started by them from all the stuff that they put in our food, et cetera, et cetera. And they never tell us the real benefits. The benefits so that you could take a dump and you could watch something on your phone, on the internet. Is that the pluses of technology, being that we can't eliminate technology? Or is it the fact that everybody out there is so miserable and don't realize they're miserable because of their technology, because they're not living the way that God had planned for all of us to live, to be able to learn trades, to be able to produce food, produce labor, fruits of our labor. Nobody does that anymore. In fact, people are just getting money from doing nothing a lot in this country specifically, called Democrats, who sit around and complain, and they get taxpayer money of other people who do work. But they want you to constantly, be stuck in this bubble and then want more technology. This bubble I'm speaking of is a bubble of misery. They call it a mental health problem, all that stuff. They never point the finger at technology, and technology is responsible for the misery. The benefits of technology. What's that? Humans losing jobs, technology taking over, then technology essentially, as he's about to say in this clip, killing off humans. Yeah, that sounds real beneficial.
So turning to AI, where you've really made waves, as mentioned, if at some point earlier, some people in the Valley said, oh, well, a long view means we're less responsible for anything. Now they're responding to you on some of the stages we showed, really issuing critical warnings about if anything, the unpredictability of the nature of the number of possible risks and the need to get ahead of that from a human-centered perspective. Even saying that sounds a little funny. But to get us going, I want to bring in Elon Musk, who, as you know, is perfect. Just ask him. And what he says. Take a listen.
I think we are seeing the most disruptive force in history here. Where we will have for the first time something that is smarter than the smartest human. It is somewhat of the magic genie problem, where if you have a magic genie that can grant all the wishes, usually those stories don't end well.
What do you think a person watching this who is not an AI expert or has not knowingly used it that much should understand about the risk, and what, if anything, our societies or governments should do now?
Well, there are two things that everybody should know about AI. First, AI is the first tool in history that can create new things by itself, that can create new ideas by itself. Secondly, AI is the first tool in history that can make decisions by itself, independently, autonomously. This is what defines it as AI. Lots of people compare AI to previous technological revolutions. They say, oh, we had it before. It's like when people invented the printing press, or when people invented radio, or when people invented nukes. So no, AI is nothing like a printing press or a radio or even an atom bomb. Atom bombs, like printing presses, ultimately empowered humanity, because the decision how to use an atom bomb, who to bomb, whether to bomb, these decisions are always made by a human being. The atom bomb cannot decide anything by itself. AI is different. An autonomous weapon system can decide by itself to open fire, who to fire on, who to kill, or eventually even to start a war. So we are dealing with an autonomous agent, nothing we've encountered before in history. Secondly, again, all the previous inventions, like you think about the printing press, they simply copied and disseminated our ideas. A printing press, you write a book, it can make 1,000 copies, 1,000,000 copies of that book. It cannot create a new book by itself with its own ideas. AI can do that. So it's totally different from anything we've seen before. And it's extremely dangerous to create such an autonomous agent when we do not know how to control it, when we can't ensure that it will not escape our control and start making decisions and creating new things which will harm us instead of benefit us. Now, this is not a doomsday prophecy. This is not inevitable. We can find ways to regulate and control the development and deployment of AI. We don't want, and it's impossible to just ban all development of AI. It won't happen because there are just too many potential positive outcomes of AI. So we need to develop it, but we need to do it in a responsible way. And I wouldn't trust, for instance, the people in Silicon Valley, whoever they are, Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or anybody else, to do it. Because, they were not elected by anybody. They are not accountable to anybody except their shareholders. The most important technology in human history, which could potentially destroy human civilization, should be developed and regulated under the supervision of governments and not just of private corporations.
So, we have, he's even saying alien-like technology in the clip that I put in there. I mean, this is what it is utter insanity that we're really allowing these people to have this type of power and to say these types of things in the open. Now, one of the last clips I'm going to play for you here is him talking about how we need elites. We need elites, apparently. We need people to tell us what to do, and we need people who are rich and powerful to tell us what's right for us. Because society won't function without these unelected elites. And of course, as you heard, he's talking about, the government needs to be the one who monitors AI, not corporations. But what they don't tell you is that the corporations and the government are one and the same. That's Facebook and all these social media companies work with the government. We obviously see that right here on YouTube, right? I mean, that's factual. That's not a conspiracy theory, okay? In fact, there are no such things as conspiracy theories anymore. That's been proven to us. So he talks about how AI needs to be governed by government and elected officials. Well, none of these people are elected, and nobody trusts the government at all. The liberals don't trust the Republicans, and Republicans don't trust the liberals. So let's just let all these people that we don't trust be in charge of AI when they tell us that we shouldn't even have jobs if we don't agree with their speech. We shouldn't be allowed to have speech if we question the government. Yeah, let's let them do it. And then on top of it, he goes into how we need elites. Listen to this nonsense.
This is the raw material from which I work and other people like me work. But if we only have that, then we leave most of the public out of the conversation. They are not going to go and read all these dozens and hundreds of learned academic papers. So we need to build this bridge. And it's obviously not going to be written in the same style or standard as your kind of deep academic papers. If you think this is unnecessary or irrelevant, then you end up with a scientific community which talks only to itself in language that nobody else understands, and you leave the general public prey to a lot of very unscientific conspiracy theories and mythologies and other theories about the world.
Your response seems to suggest almost anthropologically or sociologically that a lot of the current Western scientific discourse is elitist. It is sort of stuck in its own bubble on issues that pertain to the rest of us.
No, and I don't think that elitist is something bad. We need elites. I mean, all societies in history had elites. Conservative societies and traditional societies, they also always have elites. Somebody who says that we don't need elites is usually somebody who wants to himself or herself become the new elite.
Right.
There is just no such thing as a society without any elite. The big question is whether this elite is a serving elite, which serves the interests, the needs of broader society, or whether it is a selfish elite, which is only interested in its own interests, that only serves itself. That's the big question. Now, I think that compared to many other elites in history, scientific elite is one of the best we have. Certainly, if you do look at the positive developments of humanity in recent years, like the immense advance in medicine, this is largely the result of the work of dedicated people belonging to the scientific elite. But, and again, when you do research in medicine or archaeology or even history, most of the research is done in the research institutions, in the universities, using methods and language which is inaccessible to the rest of the public. And science has reached a level of complexity when this is just inevitable. It deals with things that require years of learning and experience. But because of that, I think there is an important responsibility of part of the scientific community, not 90% of the scientists. If all scientists, if all historians would just write the general history of the world, then you would have nothing to base this general history on. But you do need a certain percentage, a small percentage, of people who do things like what I try to do. And I'm not saying that I did it better than anybody else. There could definitely be better books out there. But you do need people who would take the discoveries and findings of science and translate them into terms that will be accessible to the vast majority of the public. And again, if you don't have any scientists who tell the history of humanity, then you will have people who have no regard for science whatsoever, doing, I think, a much, much worse job telling the history of humanity.
Yeah.
So no, we don't need elites. And then he says, well, somebody out there would want the power. No, what people want, and people, he's pretty much suggesting that even someone like myself say, right? Even though I don't really matter, but he's pretty much saying people like myself who question the elites, right? So like, obviously I question the elites. What we want is to be in their positions of power, and that couldn't be further from the truth. What we want is for you to leave us the F alone. What we want is for you to get out of our homes, to get out of trying to tell us what we should put in our bodies, to get out of trying to tell us that kids should castrate themselves. That's what we want. And you're taking it to a new level of just pretty much being psychopaths, because that's what they are. So no, people don't want to become like you. People want to get rid of you because you're the problem. You're the ones causing the chaos in our world. You're the ones causing the division in our world. And people are catching on to it, which is why they keep bringing up conspiracies and words like the Illuminati, because they want you to dismiss this stuff and not realize who the people are who are responsible for gaslighting an entire world. Right? They're gaslighting black people to hate white people. They're gaslighting white people to hate black people. They're gaslighting people into thinking that they're born a certain way when they're not, when they're actually being gaslighted into wanting that perversion because it's being subliminally processed in their brains because they're seeing it over and over again. I mean, it's incredible what they're getting away with. And then, of course, they're telling people out there that they need elites because they're setting you up for their modern-day Roman Empire here, saying that you still need these people to rule over you and to control you. When the reality is that nobody out there wants to take their place. Somebody like me, I don't want even YouTube popularity. All I want is for these people to go away. Because all we want, and I speak for the people out there, I speak as a voice for the voiceless, what we want is for you to leave us alone, and you won't. So now you're probably, if things go the way they continue to go, you could possibly start a literal uprising, or we could all just shut this system down by not participating in it anymore. So that's Yuval over on the website. This was shared with me. This entire interview is an hour plus in its entirety. I tried to just give you some of the clips there and break it down for you. I watched the entire thing. It's utterly unbelievable how they talk about how this guy who wasn't chosen, but the people who we supposedly elect are picking his brain, like Barry Obama. And of course, he's mentioning three of the most wicked people as people who pick his brain: Barack Obama, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg. You want to name anybody else out there who's more wicked? Fine. You want to throw in Claude? You want to throw in Soros? Okay. But I mean, this is the top of the food chain of the wicked psychopaths in the world that are picking this guy's brain. So what does that tell you about how wicked and psychotic he is? People like this are a detriment to society. They are mind controlling you into wanting more tech, into wanting to give more control to these unelected people because you don't understand what they're talking about. Then they try to say that we don't get it. We don't get what they mean. We're plebeians. We don't understand what these scientists say. No, we understand. We clearly understand, and we see what they're doing to our society and how they're breaking it down so they can have more control and more power. It needs to be stopped. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.